Hi, welcome to the museum. My name is Dave Kennedy. I'm the curator of collections and the exhibits for the United States Marshals Museum, Fort Smith, Arkansas. We are going to be opening up the museum in about another year and a half, September 24th, 2019. That's the 230th anniversary of the Marshals Service. And so we're really looking forward to being able to have everybody come here to Fort Smith and learn about that 230 years, soon to be plus, history. We're going to continue on as we open into talking about everything that's going to be continuing to happen. The Marshal Service, a lot of people think that it might be one of those things that started in the Old West and hasn't gone any further, but it's gotten much more than True Grit. It's much more than Rooster Cogburn, and it's much more than a lot of the stories of the Old West that people hear about. Some of those pieces I'm going to be talking to you about today. Just a lot of that history, especially as we start to get into the 20th century and the mid-20th century, the Marshals end up starting to take a pivotal role in the civil rights movement. One of those events involved Ole Miss. In 1962, James Meredith, a black Navy veteran, had applied to the university. He was declined admission. He took that suit to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court found in his favor, saying that they had to allow him to enter the university. James Meredith shows up. He's declined admission again. The Department of Justice decided to send in the United States Marshal Service to help back up the court's will. And in that case, you had 200 deputies on top of the stairs at the Lyceum on Ole Miss, and they were all wearing helmets just like this. This is just a World War II Army helmet that they'd gone through, repainted white, and then stenciled U.S. Marshal on the front. Out of those 200, most of them were deputies. Some of them were Border Patrol, and then there were some other law enforcement agents who were present just because they needed them under that ability of the Marshals to deputize others to serve their mission. One of the three leaders of the Marshals detachment was a guy named Al Butler. Al was a deputy marshal. He was involved in the integration of New Orleans at McDonough School. And then he was involved later on in a number of different activities with the Marshal Service. But in this case, he was in charge, and just like in the same World War II era idea of how you mark a leader on the battlefield, they had the stripe on the back of his helmet as well as the other two leaders. This is the helmet that Al Butler wore on the steps of the Lyceum. And so this is one of those really neat artifacts that helps tell that story of the Marshals who stood in the way of the people who are trying to take away people's rights, and they were able to help enforce the rights to make sure that people were able to continue on getting their education or doing other things as the court saw fit. Another mission that the Marshal Service has is to transport federal prisoners. And in 1989, the nation of Panama was invaded by the United States. One of those reasons was to try to get hold of the Panamanian dictator of Manuel Noriega. And as they captured Noriega finally, the first thing that was done is he was handed over to the United States Marshal Service. There were marshals on the ground in Panama waiting for that in order to extradite him back to the United States. This is one of two known pairs of handcuffs that were used on Noriega. He was taken out of his military uniform after he was arrested, and a pair of handcuffs was placed on him. And then after he'd been placed into a jumpsuit, they get him on the flight, they fly him north to Miami, at which point they find out that he needs to get off the plane wearing his military uniform. They can't find the keys to that particular pair of handcuffs because it was a special set of handcuffs. They ended up having to cut those handcuffs off of him to get the uniform changed out. And then this is the second pair of handcuffs put on. We're going to be having this set of handcuffs as well as the other set of handcuffs on exhibit when the museum opens in 2019. Additionally, to give it an idea of some of the stuff that we have to take care of, I mentioned True Grit and some other of the public understanding of what the Marshal Service is. And part of that gets built out of films like Con Air, it gets built out of The Fugitive, and it also gets built out of the film U.S. Marshals, starring Tommy Lee Jones. This is one of the original scripts that was used in the film U.S. Marshals. And much like the character that he plays in that film, today's Marshals have a lot of the same abilities. They do a lot of the same things. And as a couple of people have found out recently over the last few weeks, if you're a fugitive from any sort of a federal crime or even a lot of local city, county, state crimes, and you can't be found, a lot of those cases will end up going to the desks of the United States Marshals. And those marshals, if they're after you, they're going to find you. And so they're much more successful in finding federal fugitives than the other agencies. And so it's really neat just to get a chance to talk about some of this as well. And so with that, if you have any questions about any of the objects I talked about today, or if you have any questions about anything else, you can get hold of us through our YouTube page. You can get hold of us through our Facebook page. You can get hold of us in a lot of other ways and ask us those questions that you might have. And so we're more than happy to talk to you about any of that stuff. If you have some piece of history related to the Marshals Service, you want to pass that along to us, we'd love to see that as well. If you have stories about family members who are Marshals, those are always good. We just want to get that story out so we can talk best about the story of the United States Marshals Service and the men and women who wore the star. I'm David Kennedy. I'm the curator of collections and exhibits for the Marshals Museum. Make sure you schedule to come out to Fort Smith, Arkansas, September 24th, 2019 for our grand opening, and have a great day.